Shalom and welcome.
Hi, shalom to you all, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for choosing to take part in another episode of Torah Learning.
So how are you doing this week?
Chazdei Hashem, thank you for asking. I've been thinking this week in preparation for our session, wondering what fresh angle can we bring to one another and, of course, to our wonderful listeners.
I hear you. Moshe Rabbeinu's long speech continues this week. And to be honest, it's a bit of a challenge because that's how it's going to be throughout the entire book of Devarim.
True, but there's always a but.
See, you're absolutely right. This is a long speech, but it's not like an Erev Shabbat drasha where, the speaker can get a bit monotone.
Oh, I've been there.
The crowd struggling to keep their eyes open.
Yep, we know it from both sides, audience and speaker. But back to Moshe, what's so striking is that he's definitely not delivering a flat, one-dimensional monologue. His speech is rich and layered. It evolves step by step, both in tone and in content. At the start, Moshe speaks from a place of personal pain and historical memory. He reflects back on the sins of the generation that left Egypt, on the judges, the spies, the waters of Merivah, and he speaks in the first person. It's deeply personal. Sometimes even seems like he's angry.
Right, but gradually, let me pick it up from there, the tone shifts. It moves from looking back to preparing for the future. More and more, Moshe speaks about life in the land, about the covenant, about moral values, about the Mitzvot, the structure and principles behind the commandments, and the national responsibility.
Absolutely. Moshe teaches, encourages, and warns. You can really feel the speech gaining momentum. The tone becomes poetic, rich, and eventually prophetic. We'll see that later in the book.
If I can put it in my own words, it's like a biblical TED Talk unfolding across the book of Devarim, a powerful, emotional, educational, and personal process where a leader who's about to say goodbye to his people gives them his whole heart, everything he's learned.
And we actually touched on that in previous episodes. Listeners are welcome to go back and catch up. So what's next? If I could poll our audience right now, I'd guess they'd point to some of the most famous psukim, foundational psukim, in this week's Parsha, which are indeed central pillars of our faith.
You're probably referring to Shema Yisrael and, of course, the Ten Commandments.
Yep, I figured those would be the first that come to mind, and with good reason. But before diving in, let me say a word about the broader structure, the national context.
Sure, go ahead.
If we're trying to follow the developmental arc we've been exploring, it's worth noting that in last week's Parsha, Devarim, there were only 2 actual mitzvot, and both have to do with the system of justice that the people of Israel are meant to build as a sovereign nation in their land. We won't dive into those verses now, but just to remind ourselves, you shall not recognize faces in judgment, you shall hear the small and the great alike, you shall not fear any man. Sound familiar?
Please continue.
Now, if we're talking in terms of building the next level, then following those psukim and following that section of Moshe's speech which focused on the national foundation, it's worth noting that Moshe now turns our attention to building the layer of holiness.
So it makes sense that this week, in that next level, we encounter the exalted and familiar psukim, Shema Yisrael, and of course, the Ten Commandments. That's what you're saying.
You got me. You know me too well by now. But I'll tell you, I actually want to focus on something else.
Huh, surprise twist.
I can't pull one over on you, can I?
Nope. So what are you saying? If we're moving from one level to another, climbing upward, you want us to pause in between? Is this like platform 9 3/4?
Not exactly. And we're not pausing. We're just lingering briefly on that in-between. Because there are some psukim here that at first glance didn't get much attention, but actually contain the core, the seed of that very level of Kedusha Moshe is trying to instill in the people of Israel.
Ooh, now that's intriguing. I'm with you.
Maybe that was a long intro, but here's the heart of what we're calling the in-between. Let's take a closer look. On one hand, we encounter the Ten Commandments, fundamental principles that form the basis for the entire level of holiness, the entire structure of mitzvot.
Absolutely.
In that same level, we also find Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The pasuk that might be the very essence of faith and national identity. The pasuk that has empowered the Jewish people in every generation. The pasuk that sets before us our ultimate mission and purpose.
Definitely. And it's not just a slogan or headline. That pasuk comes with a command, a foundational obligation for every individual. Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha.
Beautiful. But in that very same layer, we also find another Shema Yisrael. You know the one?
I'm guessing you're about to say it.
Here it is. Ve'ata Yisrael Shema El hachukim ve'el hamishpatim asher anochi melamed etchem la'asot. Ve'ata Yisrael Shema. Israel, hear. It's another Shema Yisrael. And once again, just like in the Ten Commandments and the first Shema Yisrael, Moshe speaks of mitzvot, of commandments and principles, but with real emphasis on practical, lived application.
I'm starting to see your point. You're saying there's something that connects all of these.
Exactly. Between those Shema Yisrael moments, between the Ten Commandments, between the national laws from last week, there's a common thread, a deep inner principle tying it all together. Hear the psukim. Hashem did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all peoples, but because Hashem loved you. And it continues, know therefore that Hashem, your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations.
Oh, wow. But honestly, I expected something a bit more flashy, more fireworks.
That's just it. That's why I wanted us to zoom in here, because these psukim speak about belonging, identity, and the deep personal connection we're meant to feel as we ascend from national structure to sacred mission, and about the very source of strength that empowers us to carry that out.
Let's break it down.
Sure. These lesser-known psukim are actually the key to why the Jewish people were chosen by Hashem. Not because you were many, we're a tiny nation compared to others. So why us? Because of Hashem's love.
Unconditional love with no visible reason, no explanation.
Beautiful. That divine love is what gives us the power to keep the 10 Commandments, the 613 mitzvot, to carry his name in the world. That's the source. Simply his love for us, his people.
So if I'm following, these psukim show us that this inner closeness, the true love Hashem has for us, that's what gives us the ability to act, to fulfill the mitzvot, to sanctify Hashem's name in the world, and ultimately to attain true greatness.
Right. That ties it all together. Let me share how the Gemara puts it in Chulin, Masechet Chulin. It says about these in-between psukim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Israel, I desire you, for even when I grant you greatness, you humble yourselves before me. I heard a powerful interpretation from Rebbe Elisha Vishlitsky. The Jewish people don't get dazzled by external honor. Their greatness lies in recognizing that their strength comes from Hashem, not from themselves.
Let me try to say that in my own words. When we, the people of Israel, make ourselves small, meaning when we acknowledge that our strength and our identity come from Hashem, then we preserve our uniqueness as Am Segula, a treasured nation. And through the mitzvot, we're able to act with unity and strength.
Beautifully said. And the Chatam Sofer explains a related idea on the pasuk, Lelamed etchem chukim umishpatim la'asotchem otam, to teach you statutes and laws to make you do them.
Why does it say la'asotchem, to make you do them, and not just la'asotam, to do them? Because it's not only about actions. It's about becoming one with the Torah and the commandments. When you walk with humility, when you know that your ability to love Hashem and act in the world comes from His love for you, then that inner awakening, that eternal connection will guide your journey and ensure your mission to be a light, to sanctify Hashem's name, and to help bring about tikkun olam.
I love that. And I have to admit, I never gave those psukim much attention before. But now, wow. Say, can I add something? Just a small note?
Sure, I'm so glad. Let's hear it.
Since you mentioned the pasuk, lelamed etchem chukim u'mishpatim, to teach you statutes and laws, I want to point out something that surprised me. This week is actually the first time in the entire book of Devarim that the root lamed mem daled, lilamed, appears. Lilamed, to teach. Lilmod, to learn. It's the first time it appears.
You know, that root shows up 17 times across Devarim, and 8 of those are in our parsha, Ve'et Hanan.
Yes. What I'm trying to say is, this principle of Torah learning, the heart of Jewish life, maybe even the central value, as we say, Talmud Torah keneged kulam, even this principle plays a key role in that in-between space.
That's so beautiful how you put it. You're saying, let me put it in my words, that it's learning which connects the lofty ideals like Ahavat Hashem and carrying His name in the world, everything we've been discussing, with the living, active dimension of real life. That's what learning does. That's what learning Torah does.
I see you understood me. So I think we're close to wrapping up. This limud, this lilmod u lelamed, to learn and to teach, is a living, active, dynamic process that binds together the covenant, the commandments, the Shema Yisrael, with each person's inner awareness and personal acceptance.
Let me take it even further. Lilmod u lelamed, in the spirit of, you shall teach them to your children and your children's children, vahodatam levanecha u levnei banecha, that kind of dynamic limud is what ensures that even through times of change, the eternal bond, the covenantal connection between Hashem and Yisrael remains alive. Because, as we know, learning is what transforms and carries us through change.
Exactly. When learning itself reflects movement, life, and continuity, it doesn't just transmit the Torah to the next generation, it reconnects every generation in its own way back to Ma'amad Har Sinai.
Ma'amad Har Sinai.
And that's exactly the message Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to convey in those in-between sukkim.
So now we've got a few levels, and also what connects them. Incredible.
Fantastic. Let's thank our listeners.
Thank you all. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, insights, or maybe new directions to explore.
Wait, are there even more levels?
Without a doubt. Always more and more to climb.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Here we go, climbing again.